Well, take a look at this guy. It is G Strim. Oh, zero G Strim. Alright, well, this person's got all tier 8 clothing on, and they are all geared up with a real nice mammoth there. I wonder how much that mammoth is worth. Can we see? I don't know. If we go to inspect this guy, uh, mammoth is worth. Now, see, it don't really show us. It says item value is 20,000. It ain't worth 20,000 though. It's like many millions. I don't know. Mammoths are so valuable in this game. That's a real nice one too. It's got I'm guessing it looks like it looks because it's that may be a purchased skin. I'm not super sure, but it's beautiful though. Super awesome. Well, anyway, we'll leave him there. Go back to our business because I'm here riding on my little bomb donkey doing my normal thing. So that dude is out of my league, and that's all right. But I want to talk about how scarcity creates value, and this is so true in life. It's true in Albion. That's really why I'm in this game. I'm a big fan of Albion Online because it's one of the few games where there is a true system of economic scarcity. So things feel like they have value because they do have relative scarcity. Now, if everybody had that mammoth, well, who would really care, right? Because when everybody has it, why would you want it? I don't I don't really need to try to get something that everybody else can get. And at the same time, even if I don't want it, like I really don't need a mammoth, it's still nice to see it because it creates this sense of coolness, I guess. Just knowing other people have this stuff, knowing it's there to be had is cool. And that is something special about Albion Online, but it's also something special about life. And I guess in an MMO, you really want it to kind of simulate life. That's what makes it cool. That's what makes Albion seem more realistic because it does simulate life with a realistic economy system and things like that. Destroyable items, consumable items. But specifically, life is fun because everything is limited. And that's the purpose of our talk today. I remember the first time I went on an airplane ride. And that was a special experience. Going to the airport was something that I will never forget because I'd never been to a big airport through security before. I'd never been on an airplane flying commercial anywhere before. It was really special. You know, I heard your ears might pop when you climb to a certain altitude, and I was told you're gonna need to chew on chewing gum, and I had this sort of almost a little bit of a fear of what's gonna happen when we take off. You know, are my ears gonna pop, or is there gonna be something crazy? Like there was just this sense that it was an adventure. And as I progressed through life, I didn't really fly on airplanes very much. Now, I have flown from time to time over the years, but it's continued to be the case that flying on an airplane is very rare for me. I seldom have a reason to do it. It winds up being, I'm lucky if I wind up flying on an airplane more than once every couple years, probably. If that. So, it's special. Every single flight I've been on has been a special experience. And I'm sure in the future when I fly, if I fly, I'll enjoy that experience. Everything from going through security to getting a little bag of pretzels halfway through the flight along with a can of Sprite. And then I think about how other people look at flying, and a lot of people complain about it. They talk about how miserable it is. And I think it's interesting how those two experiences contrast, because it's the same exact experience, and yet I really love it. And the person that I'm sitting next to probably views it as a really boring, grueling, frustrating chore, just because they're trying to get from point A to point B. It's like getting on a bus. I was talking to a guy who flies for business once, and I said, what's your perspective on this? And he said, getting on a plane is just about the same as getting on a bus. I don't think about it. It's just automatic. So if you have a job that requires you to fly all the time, there's nothing special about it. You don't look forward to it. You just do it because that's part of your routine. It's like getting in the car and going to work. Once you get to that point, you're never going to be able to go back to the sense of wonder that you had when there was scarcity associated with that activity. It could be a game that has a sense of scarcity. It could be flying that has a sense of scarcity if you don't do it very much. It could be understanding that as much as we wish that we had eternal youth and lived forever, life has a sense of value associated with it because time, for us, from our perspective, has scarcity. Ultimately, scarcity is what creates value. It's what creates value in a market. It's what creates value in life. And my closing message to follow up on this is that scarcity is something we think of as being a negative. But in truth, we should seek scarcity in our life. Because when you limit how much of something you have, when you limit how much of something you do, then it becomes more special. And that makes a really wonderful case for the value of simplicity in your life. I used to drive all over the place. If I had time off, I would hit the road. I'd go to the big city, go downtown, watch a movie, go eat out, go see whatever was playing in the movie theater. And my life was not really good. None of those things really made my life better. But they were something that I always would go to and revert to because they seemed like a good way to maybe make my life feel more interesting. So I did them. And the more I did them, the less special they became. It's kind of like doing a drug, and the more you do the drug, the less it does for you, and then you need more and more to get that high that initially perhaps didn't require very much, but to the person who's an addict, it takes a lot. Which is why, leaving drugs out of it, people who have expectations of life that need some sort of a high to give them a sense of value will always need something that escalates. They will need something more. So what starts off as something interesting and exciting, that trip to Disneyland, whatever it is, becomes not enough. And then it's always going to come back to what can I do that I haven't done before? What can I do to find something interesting, something that's going to entertain me, something that's going to give me that sense of wow, right? And that's a really disappointing kind of a thing, because you wind up in a situation where you're just always disappointed because it's never enough. And if your goal is to have more and to find that higher high all the time, you're going to be disappointed in the end. But if you look for a simple life and you emulate scarcity, then it doesn't take very much for you to have a sense of a wow factor. Now today, I've really changed the way I live. In my personal life, I live very simple. I do my work, I do the things I need to do, and in my spare time, I spend time at home. I go for a walk in my neighborhood. I do little things. Things that I used to think were just boring. Things that I used to think I was above. Like I used to never think, oh, I'm going to just spend time at home doing something that doesn't cost anything. Or I'm going to just eat a meal at home and be happy with it. Or I'm going to just go on a walk around the neighborhood. I always had to go do something that felt meaty, something that felt big. And now I don't. And what I've found is that life is not worse for it. It's actually better. It's more enjoyable in many ways. And instead of needing a lot to entertain me, little things are enough now. Strangely, little things now are more valuable to me than much bigger things once were. And I got there by embracing scarcity instead of viewing scarcity as a problem to try to solve. And in our society, we are surrounded by the message that scarcity is bad. It's not okay to just have one thing that you use over and over again. The messaging out there is you need to have an insatiable desire for consumption. One streaming service is not going to be enough. You need to have 5 streaming services so that you can watch all the latest content. Just the same clothes that you wear all the time, that's not enough. You need to be current on all the latest fashion and style and whatever the latest and greatest thing is. One video game that you installed and you play is not enough. You need to always be current on the latest thing that's in the Steam new release library, and so on, so forth. It just never ends. And we're taught to never be satisfied. But the extremely large tends to be mirrored in the extremely small. If you look at the structure of the known universe and you compare that to the structure of something like a flower or a plant studied under a microscope, you start to see the same basic structures, the same basic styles. And it all leads back to this circular concept that if you're looking for something at the end of the path that's going to give you a sense of meaning and purpose and gratification, you will never find it. You're never going to find that rainbow that has a pot of gold at the end. And you'll always be going there, looking for it, and never finding it, because once you get there, you realize there's nothing there. And then you're off to go find the next promise. Chasing promises does not create happiness. Finding joy in little things, though, does. So my challenge is to embrace simplicity. Not by not meeting your basic needs, but to embrace simplicity by understanding that having an infinite amount of things in your life that take up your time, that take up space physically or mentally, that doesn't add value to your life. Having less creates value, because then you're more likely to take pride and find joy in the things that you have.